Okay, we're going to use the LOI template again. Alright, so if you haven't been introduced to it, right? Start by reading the instructions, so anything we come across in yellow we'll fill in, and then anything in green we'll read and review. Right, legal disclaimers, because we're a law firm, so of course we have this stuff, and then our contact information. We'll just start. Alright, so I'm doing this on a Sunday, but we'll just say I'm going to send it tomorrow, so June 16th, 2025. So I've not signed an NDA for this, so I don't know anything about this. Mr. Seller and business address. Right, those are things I would know if I filled out the SIM, got the SIM, and did all of that. But again, this is just for the purposes of this. All right. So this is in Kentuckiana, so we'll say Hoosier Cardinal Enterprises, Cardinal LLC, whatever. It's a made-up name, taking Louisville and Southern Indiana. So we'll say that I've already formed an entity for this one. So Mr. Seller, at least my brother would be proud about the Cardinal part, because he went to the University of Louisville. He would not be as proud about the Hoosier part, but I don't have anything against people from Indiana. And we'll just say business name, right? We don't know the business name. All right. So we're going to make a couple of assumptions here, just so that it's a slightly different video. We're going to say that we know that this service business has big corporate clients, right? So we're just going to assume that in the SIM. Don't know that to be the case, but we'll just assume it. And so we will say that those are big contracts with big corporates that we can't assign, all right? So we're buying the entity. We're going to buy all of it. All right, so we're going to buy all of the equity of this business. So we're going to make a whole bunch of changes, right? So get to replace what I've already done. Even so, it'll be fun. We'll just make these changes live, right? So I won't delete it all because that would mess up the footnotes, but so I'll just change this information, copy these, and you could just delete all of this, but I'm not going to preserve the footnotes for purposes of the exercise. All right, and we would delete all of that, but again, we're going to keep the footnotes so that we can review them. All right, so we need to make some more changes. All right, so we've done this one. We need to change section 1 to this language, so we copy and paste. You could also cut and paste. And I'm just going to, again, make an assumption here. And I'll just assume that this is an S corp. So in which case this is the buyer assumes that the company will undergo F reorganization as part of the transaction. All right. So that's something that some of you may not be familiar with, but is really important for taxes. It makes things, it adds a little bit of complexity to the structure, but it lets you buy an S Corp and have it be taxed as if it were an asset purchase. So we're just going to assume that this is an S Corp. We might be able to tell if we had this in, but again, we don't, and that's okay. We're just doing the exercise. All right, so now we replace 6.1c with this language. We'll do that now. Scroll down. 6.1c, here we go. Copy and paste. Now we go back up, and 6.1d is the next one. Here we go. That's the wrong footnote. All right, let's make sure we're using the right footnote, because we don't need this additional language, but that's okay. And yes, we're only changing one word to make those changes, but it's easier to just copy and paste the whole thing. All right, so that addresses our structure, because we're not doing a partial roll, and we're not doing, this is also a partial roll, so this would be partial roll in an SBA deal, this is a partial roll outside an SBA deal, so we can delete all of those. All right, now we've got that, so we're going to offer 3 point, so we'll just say, we'll offer full ask here, so we'll say $4 million. And we're going to say, of that, we'll say that 85% will be cash at close. I'm just going to choose that as a number, so it's going to be 3.4, but we'll confirm that. Yep. So 3, 4. We paid the seller at closing. All right. And then, so we've got a seller note here. So we'll just add the full language. Delete. Fix the formatting, make it justified. So 600K, we paid a promissory note, and we'll say 9%. 9%. We'll say it'll be on standby for 1 year, and then amortized over 5. And then the promissory note, we're gonna make the promissory note forgivable in this one. So if the business must achieve EBITDA of $100,000 in the 12 months following closing. This is actually a really scary thing to do with an offer. You really wouldn't structure an offer like this because it almost guarantees a lawsuit. But I'm just going to do it because I'm picking it because it's the clean number. Again, this is really not what you would want to do. Let's go ahead and do it the way we would really encourage people to do it. So it's like gross revenues following closing. At least, and the reason why I don't like EBITDA based things is because EBITDA is a lot easier to game, and so it leads to fights. Okay, so I'm going to build in a little bit of cushion. All right, it's not quite 10% cushion, but it's a little bit of cushion. So, and we'll call this revenue target. Again, there aren't really notes about this in the document, but in the event the actual revenues, actual gross revenues are less than the revenue target, then the principal amount of the seller note will be forgiven because it's a forgivable seller note, and it helps if you can spell it right on a dollar for dollar basis. And then we'll give the actual gross revenues. I'm going to just give a concrete example. To make it easier to understand. Or let's say 3.6 million. Then the principal seller note would be reduced to $450,000. Alright, so we inserted some forgivability into the seller note, and that's kind of what that looks like into the promissory note. Right, and you don't have to be, maybe you don't have to do this part, and sometimes people can be more aggressive on this. Right? Sometimes they'll make it, I've seen people offer an all or nothing cliff. If you do that as a buyer, good luck to you, but I have seen people try it. And then, okay, so that addresses the seller note. But we do have the real estate, and we're going to purchase the real estate here. So purchase price includes 1.35 for real estate used in the operation of the business. Buyer anticipates buyer may form a separate entity to purchase the real estate. All right, so this makes it clear again. Right, that we're paying $135 for the business, and then $265 for the business, $135 for the real estate. Because it'll be, the way the loan works is different. Some of the taxes are different. So go ahead and break it out. And then we'll say, okay. So 500,000 EBITDA in 2024. Again, I'll just assume that it's 2024 as reported by the seller, and then we're going to which equates to an 8x EBITDA multiple, which, asterisk. So what we'll really do is carve out the business. So what is the business? Is 265. Okay, 265. We don't want to do the real estate on this. So 5.3 is EBITDA multiple on the value of the business. Alright, so there's a bit of a weird work because the real estate will take that out when we're calculating the multiple. All right. So now we don't know so much about the, I mean, they've listed the FF&E, and that's a big number. You know, so that's going to be really important to diligence of what the state of the fleet is. But here, you know, we don't really know a lot about their working capital needs or their working capital structure. We're not going to put a number. Right? We're not going to do cash, inventory. We don't really know. Long-term projects, we don't know. Right? And we don't know about this either. All right, so we'll go ahead and put this in. Actually, we'll put it here. But otherwise, since we don't know a lot of the net working capital stuff, we're just gonna leave it. All right, maybe there would be more information in the sim. I don't love to just leave it like this because this is ways that deals can have a problem later. But based on what I know, which isn't a whole lot, this is the best I can do, so that's what I'm going with. All right, so we don't know about key employees. Where are the numbers? Oh, screwed that up. All right. How did we manage to do that, I guess? Huh. Well, we'll fix that, because otherwise it messes things up. It's not underlined, and then alright, we're gonna go in and manually, I'm just gonna have to cheat. Something messed up with the formatting, so I'm just gonna tweak it, but it changes but I feel compelled to fix it because if I don't, it makes some of the footnotes wrong, so whatever. Hopefully you won't deal with that problem. Alright, so now let's get back to it. And the reason I did that is this mentions section 6 and it was going to say number 5, so I went and fixed that. So we're not leasing the real estate. I don't know about key employees, so we're going to just delete that. Alright, transition services. So we're going to, the footnote is about the length of time and how many hours per week. So we'll just say transition services for the business amounting to full-time hours for a period of 2 months. For no additional compensation. Sometimes you need to include the comp. Sometimes people will do like a stair step down. All right, so we'll start with 90 days. See if it ends up that way, but that's kind of where most people start. All right, so governing law. So the business is in Kentucky and southern Indiana. So I grew up in Kentucky, so I'm going to choose Kentucky for the governing law. It would be one of the two, probably. But I'm gonna go with the state that gave me my accent. So we'll say Kentucky. All right, we'll just say that I signed an NDA, which I didn't for this listing, but we'll say that it was May 23rd. I don't even know what day of the week that would have been, but there you go. Expenses, right? Not a lot of fees, and they're not going to be trademarks or things like that with a business like this, so we're not going to worry about it. And then this letter will expire if not accepted by 5 p.m. EST. And we'll give them till Friday, which would be June 20th. Fix that. All right. So now, all right, we can assign it. So the buyer name, what did I made up a company name for this one? So Hoosier Cardinal, because it was Indiana and the Louisville part of Kentucky. And I would put my name here since I have an entity, and then that's what this footnote is. It's like if you haven't formed an entity, then you delete this part, but I have formed an entity in this, so there we go. And then the seller is Mr. Seller. I'm going to confirm. All right, so then last thing we do, we come up here, we delete the pretty logo, and then we delete the instructions. Yeah, although we copy and paste that somewhere so that when the seller provides feedback, we know who to contact and hopefully who to work with, because that is why I'm doing this video for you. And then we've got an LOI that's clean, ready to go, and then we would just sign it and send it out. All right, thank you.